There's something happening to a lot of men, and most don't even realize it. It's a habit that creeps in quietly, disguising itself as harmless, even normal. But over time, it takes its toll, leaving men weaker, more anxious, and less driven. The truth is, excessive indulgence in self-gratification drains a man of his energy, his confidence, and his ability to command respect in the world. The science backs it up. Studies have shown that overindulgence in pleasure-seeking behaviors floods the brain with dopamine, a chemical tied to motivation and reward. But here's the problem. When the brain is constantly hit with artificial rewards, it stops seeking real ones. That means less ambition, lower drive, and a weakened ability to push forward in life. It's no coincidence that men who struggle with this habit often feel stuck, unmotivated, and even socially anxious. Their energy is being siphoned away, leaving them in a cycle of temporary pleasure followed by long-term dissatisfaction. Confidence isn't built in a vacuum. It comes from action, discipline, and self-assertion. A man who allows his impulses to dictate his actions is a man who loses his grip on his own potential. Think about it. When you see a man who moves with purpose, who speaks with certainty, who looks people in the eye without hesitation, you know he's in control. That's not arrogance, that's self-assurance. And self-assurance comes from a life built on strength, not one drained by instant gratification. This is about more than just attraction. Women are drawn to men with an energy that speaks for itself, a presence that doesn't need to beg for attention. The problem is, when a man falls into the cycle of draining his own energy, he starts to disappear in more ways than one. He becomes less magnetic, less engaging, less of a force in the room. That's because attraction isn't just about looks. It's about presence, confidence, and the ability to inspire respect without saying a word. Breaking free from this cycle isn't about deprivation. It's about transformation. It's about redirecting that energy into something powerful. Every moment spent chasing temporary relief is a moment that could be used building a skill, hitting the gym, pursuing a goal, or simply becoming the kind of man who walks into a room and owns it. It's about taking control, not just of your habits, but of your future. Because, at the end of the day, the world respects a man who respects himself. And that respect starts with the choices you make every single day. The power of self-truth, how energy affects attraction. Women are naturally attuned to a man's energy, even when he isn't speaking. It's not about flashy clothes or a rehearsed pickup line. It's about presence. When a man has control over himself, he walks into a room differently. His posture is strong, his gaze is steady, and his movements are deliberate. Women don't just see this, they feel it. But when a man is constantly draining his own energy, he loses that edge. His focus dulls, his body language weakens, and his presence fades into the background. Attraction isn't just about looks or money. It's about the energy a man carries. And if that energy is constantly being depleted, he'll struggle to command attention, no matter how hard he tries. Science backs this up. When a man retains his energy, his testosterone levels remain high, which impacts everything from confidence to risk-taking. Studies show that frequent depletion of energy lowers testosterone, making a man less dominant and less assertive. A man who conserves his energy naturally radiates strength. He's the type that walks into a room and people notice, not because he's trying to be seen, but because his presence demands respect. The science behind attraction. There's a reason why some men seem to attract women effortlessly while others struggle, no matter how hard they try. It all comes down to biology and psychology. Women are wired to be drawn to strength, both physical and mental. This is why confidence, self-assurance, and control over one's impulses are so appealing. Frequent self-indulgence, especially in ways that deplete a man's energy, has real physiological effects. Each time a man releases his energy, his body undergoes a chemical shift. Testosterone levels drop, dopamine levels fluctuate, and over time his motivation, drive, and confidence begin to wane. Instead of radiating power and self-certain, he becomes more passive, more hesitant, and less certain of himself, looking up to a man who retains his energy. His testosterone remains high, his motivation sharp, and his drive to achieve becomes stronger. He moves with purpose, speaks with certainty, and his presence is undeniable. Women notice this. Subconsciously or not, they are drawn to men who appear in control of their own desires, not men who are constantly at the mercy of them. The presence of a high synergy man. Picture two men walking into the same room. One is sluggish, slightly hunched over, with an air of nervousness about him. His eyes dart around, searching for validation, unsure of himself. The other walks in with confidence. His back is straight, his eyes are steady, and his movements deliberate. He doesn't need to seek attention, it comes to him naturally. This difference is everything. Women pick up on it immediately. They are drawn to the man who exudes power without needing to announce it. He is intriguing because he carries himself with a quiet authority. He doesn't have to prove himself with words. His presence alone does that. Throughout history, the most admired and respected men weren't those who constantly chased fleeting pleasure. They were the ones who mastered themselves, who redirected their energy towards something greater. They built empires, led revolutions, and left legacies that lasted far beyond their time. They understood that true power lies in discipline, in control, and in the ability to harness one's energy for a higher purpose. How this translates to relationships. Women don't just want a man, they want a force of nature. They are drawn to men who are going somewhere in life, who have goals, purpose, and a vision that extends beyond mere gratification. A man who is too focused on short-term pleasure signals that he lacks direction, and nothing is less attractive than a man who seems lost, unsure of himself, or desperate for external validation. On the other hand, when a man retains his energy and channels it into something meaningful, everything about him changes. He becomes more decisive, more confident, and more magnetic. His conversations are more engaging, his presence more commanding, and his attractiveness skyrockets. Not because he is trying harder, but because he has become someone worth noticing. The shift from chasing to attracting. The moment a man stops seeking validation through fleeting pleasure and instead focuses on building himself up, everything changes. He no longer acts needy because he isn't desperate. He isn't easily shaken because he has control over himself. That kind of self-mastery is magnetic. Women don't just see it, they feel it. And that's the secret. Attraction isn't about tricks, lines, or strategies. It's about becoming a man who naturally draws people in. A man who is focused, disciplined, and unshakable in his purpose. The kind of man who doesn't chase attention but commands it effortlessly. Because, at the end of the day, the most attractive thing a man can be isn't rich, famous, or even good-looking. It's in control. When a man learns to harness that power, attraction isn't something he has to chase, it becomes something he naturally draws in. The hidden cost of instant gratification. Many men experience an undeniable feeling of emptiness after indulging in self-gratification. Society often labels it as a form of stress relief, something harmless and natural. But few talk about the lingering sense of depletion that follows. No one walks away from it feeling stronger, more confident, or more ambitious. Instead, there's often a quiet erosion of motivation, an unspoken withdrawal from the drive that once fueled their ambition. At the core of this phenomenon is the brain's reward system, deeply intertwined with dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for pleasure and motivation. In its natural state, dopamine is released when real accomplishments are achieved. Winning a challenge, making progress in a career, or excelling in personal development. However, when artificial stimulation replaces real effort, the brain is tricked into believing it has accomplished something meaningful. Over time, this creates a dangerous cycle, where the craving for instant gratification overshadows the pursuit of long-term success. The hunger for progress fades, replaced by a growing dependence on easy pleasure. As this cycle continues, the brain demands increasingly higher levels of stimulation to feel the same rush. What was once satisfying loses its effect, and the thrill of real-will achievements begins to dull. The drive to excel, to push boundaries, to strive for something greater slowly erodes. The consequences extend beyond just ambition. Focus dwindles, confidence diminishes, and emotional resilience weakens. Instead of meeting challenges head-on, many retreat into comfort, mistaking temporary relief for true satisfaction. Throughout history, great thinkers, warriors, and leaders have understood the power of discipline and energy retention. Ancient emperors and philosophers believed that preserving one's energy cultivated mental clarity, stronger presence, and unwavering determination. Modern science backs this up, linking self-stores to increased testosterone levels, deeper voices, and stronger eye contact. All qualities that naturally command respect. A man who carries himself with an aura of control and purpose doesn't need to seek validation. It gravitates toward him naturally. Women, too, instinctively recognize this energy, drawn not to superficial displays of status, but to the quiet confidence of a man with direction. Beyond biology, the broader implications of energy depletion are evident in daily life. When gratification is prioritized over discipline, the natural inclination to strive, conquer, and create fades. Men conditioned to chase pleasure often find themselves sidestepping the challenges that forge character. Instead of seeking growth, they settle into comfort, unknowingly accepting mediocrity as their norm. But true fulfillment doesn't come from escaping difficulty, it comes from overcoming it. The ability to delay gratification, to channel energy toward building rather than escaping, is what separates the exceptional from the average. To break free from this cycle, one must first recognize the cost of unchecked indulgence. Awareness alone, however, is not enough. Action is required. Replacing passive habits with purposeful pursuits rewires the brain to find satisfaction in real achievements. Physical discipline, intellectual growth, and meaningful connections offer a sense of fulfillment that artificial rewards can never replicate. The man who harnesses his energy, directing it toward his ambitions, commands a presence that others respect and admire. In the end, the choice is simple: fleeting pleasure or lasting greatness. The hidden cost of instant gratification: reclaiming your power. Most men don't realize the quiet damage they do to themselves through habits they barely think about. They wonder why they feel drained, anxious, and uninspired, never stopping to question whether their daily routines are the real culprit. But science and experience tell us something undeniable. What you do in private directly affects how you show up in the world. Excessive indulgence in artificial pleasure, whether through constant digital distractions, unhealthy habits, or overconsumption of explicit content, rewires the brain in ways that dull ambition and weaken a man's natural drive. Studies confirm that overstimulation desensitizes dopamine receptors, making it harder to find joy in real experiences, social interactions, or personal achievements. What once felt exciting becomes mundane, and over time a man finds himself lacking motivation, wondering where his edge went. Throughout history, great men understood the value of energy retention. Philosophers, warriors, and leaders alike knew that discipline over one's impulses was the foundation of strength. When a man consistently depletes himself, he sends a subconscious message to his body and mind. There is no need to strive, no reason to fight for something greater. The fire that once pushed him toward success dims, replaced by passivity and hesitation. This decline is not just mental but physical. Risk-tasting decreases, confidence wavers, and the natural presence that once commanded respect begins to fade. The psychological impact of overindulgence. It's easy to brush off the effects of instant gratification, to think it's harmless or just a small part of life. But what many don't realize is that every action either strengthens or weakens a man's discipline, confidence, and ability to handle adversity. When pleasure is easily accessible, the mind becomes conditioned to seek it out instead of engaging with real-world challenges. Over time, this leads to a decrease in mental resilience. Consider how difficult it becomes to focus on long-term goals when instant pleasure is always an option. A man who regularly gives in to fleeting urges finds it harder to maintain discipline in other areas of life. He loses patience with the slow and steady grind required for success. His ability to delay gratification, the very thing that separates high achievers from average men, begins to erode. Attraction, ambition, and self-respect all stem from a man's ability to control himself. Women in particular are highly attuned to this. A man who lacks discipline and constantly indulges in quick dopamine fixes radiates an energy of passivity rather than presence. Without saying a word, his actions reveal who he is. And when a woman senses that a man is more accustomed to seeking comfort than chasing excellence, her respect for him diminishes. The connection between discipline and masculine presence. There's a reason why men who master themselves seem to command respect effortlessly. Their presence alone shifts the energy of a room. They don't need to demand attention because they embody a natural confidence that draws people in. This is not arrogance. It's the result of years of self-mastery, of making the harder choice when the easier one was available. Women are attracted to men who are fully present, who carry themselves with purpose. They respect men who are not enslaved by their impulses, but instead channel their energy into building, creating, and leading. This kind of presence cannot be faked. It is built through discipline, through choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. A man who constantly consumes rather than creates, who observes rather than participates, trains himself to be a spectator in his own life. Over time, he becomes less socially sharp, more awkward in interactions, and increasingly detached from reality. He notices that women react differently to him, sensing his lack of presence, his lack of purpose. Attraction isn't just about looks or charm, it's about energy. And when that energy is scattered, when it's wasted on things that offer no real return, it shows. The escape trap. Why avoiding reality makes life worse. Many men use these habits as a way to escape. Stress, boredom, loneliness. These are all real struggles, and it's tempting to drown them out with distractions. The problem is that avoidance never solves anything. The quick relief of escaping into artificial pleasure feels good in the moment, but it doesn't remove the underlying issues. It only postpones dealing with them. The longer a man avoids reality, the more his problems grow. His self-confidence diminishes, his ability to face challenges weakens, and he finds himself trapped in a cycle of avoidance. The things he once dreamed of accomplishing start to feel out of reach, not because they are impossible, but because he has trained himself to seek comfort instead of growth. Over time, this erodes a man's sense of self-worth. Looking in the mirror, he doesn't see the strong, capable man he once imagined himself to be. He sees someone who has settled and chosen ease over greatness. And that realization is far more painful than any short-term discomfort he was trying to avoid. Reclaiming masculine power. The way forward is clear. A man who reclaims control over himself, who masters his impulses instead of being ruled by them, rediscovers his power. He feels sharper, more driven, more present. He walks into a room and people notice, without him having to say a word, because true strength isn't about forcing respect or proving yourself, it's about embodying a presence that naturally commands it. This isn't about deprivation, it's about transformation. It's about replacing empty pleasure with real fulfillment. It's about choosing to live fully instead of merely existing. The men who rise above their impulses, who channel their energy into creating something meaningful, are the ones who leave a lasting impact. They are the ones who inspire, who lead, who attract not just women, but respect from the world around them. And in the end, that is what true masculinity is about, not seeking external validation, but cultivating internal strength so that everything else naturally follows. There's a hidden trap that drains a man's energy, confidence and drive, a cycle of instant gratification that leaves him weaker over time. It's not about morality or outdated notions of discipline. It's about reclaiming the strength that naturally belongs to you. Every time a man gives in to fleeting pleasure, he loses a piece of his power. He sacrifices focus, determination, and the raw hunger that pushes him forward in life. This is not just about biology, it's about psychology. The mind, wired for quick rewards, becomes addicted to ease, avoiding the discomfort that forges resilience. When a man constantly indulges, he conditions himself to take the easy path in everything, from relationships to career ambition. He becomes passive instead of assertive, reactive instead of proactive. But when he makes a choice, a firm, unwavering decision to reclaim control, everything changes. Energy returns like a surge of untapped potential. Confidence rises, not because of external validation, but because he respects himself again. He walks differently, speaks differently, and most importantly, thinks differently. A man who exercises self-hope operates on a higher frequency, and people feel it. Women sense it, the world reacts to it. Those who have walked this path know the transformation is undeniable. They don't look back because they've experienced what it's like to live at their full potential. And once you've felt that power, Why would you ever give it up again?